There are many questions as to why Melanie Joly is doing a diplomacy tour in the Middle East, and while one Twitter thread is tying it all back to the Wicked Witch of the WEF herself, Chrystia Freeland. Nya Pfannerstill on Twitter has this interesting thread, and we're going to go through this because this seems to shed a lot of light on why Melanie Joly is over there in the first place. Many are wondering why Melanie Joly, what she's doing in the Middle East and specifically Saudi Arabia. The government has not explained. Here's why. In a thread here, Melanie Joly's tweet going out saying, "Thank you to my counterpart from Saudi Arabia, HRH Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saudi." That's a mouthful. "For the warm welcome and productive conversation on how our two countries can collaborate in service of global peace and security." Okay, what's this all about? Well, it turns out back in 2018, Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland, who was the Foreign Affairs Minister at the time, she's now the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, which she's doing a bang-up job at that job as well. Well, at the time, she thought she would score her good social media points to interfere in the politics of another country, specifically Saudi Arabia. Obviously not understanding that her job would put her in the limelight for doing so and put all Canadians at risk in that process. The same Chrystia Freeland who imprisoned Canadians without charge, oh, the irony, freezing people's bank accounts, of course, for just having donated to a protest, which infringes on people's political speech. That is protected under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms here in Canada. Chrystia Freeland tweeting out at the time, very alarmed to learn that Samar Badawi, Raif Badawi's sister, have been imprisoned in Saudi Arabia. Canada stands together with the Badawi family in this difficult time, and we continue to strongly call for the release of both Raif and Samar Badawi. Which is one thing if you're just a person in Canada saying this stuff. You're talking about the person in charge of foreign affairs in Canada saying this stuff. This went over like a lead balloon, of course, says Nya in her thread here. The Saudi put a shot over the bow asking Canada to repeat itself, i.e. walk back the statements. The power of social media likes was too great for the PMO, and Freeland doubled down, putting Canada on the line for two Saudi, not Canadian citizens. This article saying Saudi Arabia freezes new trade investments after Canada demands activists be freed. Wow, that's incredible. Ottawa is seeking greater clarity on statements from Riyadh. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. Chrystia Freeland spokesperson says actions have consequences, and if there is one single consensus trait of the Trudeau government, it's not being able to foresee the consequences of its own actions. Saudi suspended diplomatic relations and recalled 1,100 medical personnel, professional personnel from Canada, and 13,000 highly skilled wealthy students. The imminent departure of Saudi medical residents. This is from back in 2018. Well, you guessed it, right before the pandemic. That's right. That's before we had all that stuff. And what did the government do during the pandemic? Well, they fired anybody who refused to take mandatory medical procedures as well on top of that. And many provinces have refused to even let back medical personnel in that situation. And guess what? We're in a big medical crisis here in Canada. And the government also is suspending or withholding federal funds that the provinces need for that medical service in the provinces, lest they do digital ID. Yeah, that's also on the table here in Canada. So really harming the Canadian citizenry because of their words, the things that they want to say in this case. Nya goes on to say, it's no coincidence that Canada's healthcare unexpectedly went for a crapshoot. Just after that, instead of training highly educated and wealthy Saudi immigrants, Canada lost its farm team and had to start all over. Your grandma died during COVID because Freeland is mentally immature. Sabrina Maddow reporting Trudeau receives international condemnation for his pandemic failures. A scathing new series of reports in the British Medical Journal shows that Canadian leaders have a lot to answer for. This is published in July 25th, 2023. Nya continues to say one could try to argue the Trudeau government was standing on its principles against Saudi Arabia, but that would be false because Trudeau's government has no principles. Here's another article saying that Canada, Justin Trudeau and his cabinet abstained from China genocide vote. That's right. They abstained from voting to declare that what's happening to the Uyghur Muslims is in fact a genocide. Now, of course, now back to Jolie. Canada's healthcare has suffered for 6 years due to Freeland's idiotic Twitter diplomacy. Jolie is kissing Middle Eastern tuckus to try to get Saudi to send back its medical workers. The only principle the Trudeau government is worried about is getting reelected because, well, we can see clearly what's going on here in the polls. And of course, you can hear the rhetoric coming from the opposition now.
We're going to bring home our freedom again. We will repeal liberal censorship law C11. We will ban all of our ministers and members of parliament from any involvement in the World Economic Forum.
Well, that's a big one because we all know the involvement of the Wicked Witch of the WEF here. What else did he have to say? Listen to the crowd on that alone.
There will be no mandatory digital ID, no central bank digital currency. We'll ban the IRGC terrorists to protect our people. We're going to give people back control of their lives here in this country.
Now, of course, in response to the opposition in Canada, namely Pierre Poilievre going on after a lot of these subjects, including housing, they're sending Jolie over to the Middle East to fix the mess up that they've done there. And they're over here in Canada bragging about the great work that they're doing for the housing market.
I am so glad to be here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. And I am here at Hudson House. You can see amazing views all around me. This is an apartment building that has 227 apartments for low and middle income Canadians. And it was built thanks to our apartment construction loan program. I am really, really glad that we have that program in place that has built great apartments like the ones here and is building more apartments for Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
Obviously taking credit in the fact that there is a massive demand for housing in Canada and investors that have come in and invested in this. Obviously, yeah, taking credit for that. But what is driving the cost of housing going up? Well, it's actually this government and their immigration policy. Now, Candice Malcolm put this one out there because many Canadians don't realize just how dire the situation with immigration actually is in Canada. Most Canadians think we welcome in 500,000 new immigrants per year, which would be too much. And most Canadians think that number is too high. But Canada actually admits 2.2 million people per year. I have to repeat that. Canada admits 2.2 million people per year. The numbers are 500,000 permanent residents, 660,000 temporary workers, 900,000 students, and 143,000 asylum seekers. Now, you can read her list. A link will be in the description down below. Go check it out yourself. But this is what the immigration minister had to say recently when the attention went to immigration.
It is unhealthy to link housing to the volume of people that are coming here to seek refuge.
It is unhealthy for their poll numbers, absolutely.
And asylum. Equally unhealthy to relate it to immigrants. The price of houses has jumped as a result of interest rates and affordability has jumped as a result of that. That isn't because of volumes that we are seeing. At the same time, and these are two truths that can be the case at the same time, it's no surprise that people that are here temporarily, as economists measure, do put pressure on what they call the cost of shelter. This is more of a humanitarian challenge because the type of shelter that we would deploy as a responsible country to welcome these people.
Tents is what they're deploying.
Affordability has struck every single part of the country, and that is not something that asylum seekers have created, nor should they be held responsible for.
No, they shouldn't be held responsible for it. Your government should be held responsible for it. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. This is just insane, the insanity that's been going on with the government. Horrible diplomacy, horrible implementation of policy, and it's really Canadians that are suffering at the end of the day for this. These politicians are lining their pockets with these scams that we've all seen. We'll be talking about this on Friday. I am looking forward to Friday. We're going to be having Northern Perspective on the show to talk about the Arrive Can scam that's been happening in Ottawa that they've all been lining their pockets with. But I digress. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think. And of course, we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.